Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I made this video for the work project Lab English for Business. Audio 1. Listen to part of lecture from a marine biology class. Today, we'll discuss this in relation to a seafood tropic relationship. Describe the relationship between producer and consumers. So they help us diagram food chains and webs. Now, in marine ecosystem like other ecosystems, food is needed for matter growth and reproduction and for energy metabolic process within the body. Also, like other ecosystem, marine ecosystem have producer, consumer, and decomposer. The primary producer are autotrophic plankton. Autotrophic means this plankton can synth- synthesize their own food. Autotrophs are consumed by heterotrophic organisms. Hetero means other, so in this case, heterotrophic means organism that can synthesize their own food. They must rely on autotroph for food energy. The primary consumers in marine food chains are the plants eater herbivore, and the secondary consumers are both the meat eater carnivores and predators that eat both meat and plants omnivores. The decomposers are heterotrophic bacteria which get energy from body what's at dead tissue, thus cycling in back to the producer. A simple marine potence the may look look like this. The top predator topic level number 4 is a herring. Herring fish eat level 3. Carnivorous zooplankton. The carnivorous zooplankton eat tropic level 2. Herbivorous zooplankton and herbivorous zooplankton eat level number 1 phytoplankton, which is a type of autotroph. In marine food sense, energy transfer is not very efficient. Phytoplankton utilize only about 1% of the energy available from the sun, between 70 and 90% of the energy made by producer or eaten by heterotrophs. Heterotrophs is used in their bodies or expelled as waste. This level this leave only 10 to 30% that's retained in the body's biomass and available for consumers at the next highest trophic level. Thus, the biomass at each trophic level is controlled by the efficiency of the energy transfer. At the lowest trophic level, animals will generally have high biomass, and there will be lots of small producer at the highest trophic level. Animals will generally have low biomass, and there will be only a few larger animals. Let's expand our simple food chains into a food web. In the web, a herring is no longer a topic for predator. A food web is more complex than a food chain. And then there are gigantic animals like shark and baleen whales that are herbivores and only eat plankton. But let's focus for a few moments on us. What are the implications of rock cleaver for the fish we eat? Well, looking at the fish harvest worldwide, 80, 88% of the fish we catch are fish with fins. 8% are shellfish and 4% are crustaceans. Fish found in the open ocean, such as tuna, are high-level predators on and inefficient food chains. Fish found in coastal areas such as Cook, herring and haddock are the top and offshore more efficient food chains. This is because there is a high density of phytoplankton, so customers expend less energy catching food. These fish then provide more energy and better nutrition for us. In upswelling area of the West Coast or America and Africa, the fish are even healthier, there are small, very efficient food chains, and the fish are small, but growing at lots of phytoplankton and rainfall in dense schools. Two examples of such fish are anchovies and sardines. Audio 2. Listen to part of lecture from an American history class. Most scholars agree that women have been shortchanged in United States history textbooks because a woman has never been a U.S. The contributes women have made to U.S. history is recent years. Through a new field or women's history has emerged. It is called women's contemporary history, and it's forcing historians to reinterpret traditional picture of case historical events. Now they're looking at ways women contribute to history behind the scenes. Tom they define in history roles or occupy the political stage. Women formed organization in place such as circus and clubs where they discussed ideas and learned skills that would later lead to their emergence in the historical spotlight. Jane Addams is one good example of this. She found that houses were poor people in Chicago and was an original member of the American Civil Liberty Union for ACLU. She lobbied the government for the right of works and of work of work and women with Spain of in 1920 and women reserved the right to vote in 1931. She became the first American woman to win to the Nobel Peace Prize. Women can tell history start with the premise that females played an important part in shaping U.S. history and that the gender is unworthy historical distinction. This this perspective is different from past models of studying women in U.S. history. Of the first model is called the contribute. contribution approach, which conceded that that men play the leading historical part, that women were vital supporting actresses at every landmark historical event. Well, well, this was entirely true. The contribute approach has been criticized because it highlights warming mo- because it highlights knowing the rebels and victors women and wisdom neglects the social role of women is very familiar. Like another, a second historical model is called the victim approach, which emphasizes how men have oppressed women throughout history, although officially true. It tells only part of the story. It also tends toward emotionalism, every dramatizing the woman's plight. Woman centered story tends to balance the contribute and victim approach in, instead of asking how the woman helped men or how have men oppressed woman and asking simply what have women done then no in one sense. It still gives only a partial picture because it examines history from only one perspective. But in another sense, it gives a fairer and more complete portrait of U.S. woman that woman's part than the previous two model. One historian named Gerda Lerner say women can chart history, tell how women have survived and contribute in a male world on their own terms. Miss Leonard claims that women can chart history but portrays the balance of interaction between women's operation and women's power. It has completed his stories to see certain historical processes processes in a new light, such as the 8th or 19th century temperance movement and the prohibition movement of the 20th century. As feminist scholars keep studying the history of U.S. women, more new approaches are likely to develop. For example, there are still several subcategories of women's history to consider, such as labor history, social status, the history of women in minority cultures, and so on. There are also class divisions, speech divisions, ethnic division, and religious division. Finally, there is the history of women's interaction with other women, not just with men. Audio 2. Listen to part of a university science lecture on Islam biogeography. Today, I'd like to look at the topic of Islam geography, the study of plants and animal distribution on Islam. Studies in this field ballooned soon after the publication of Max Archer and Wilson's seminal theory of Islam biography in 19 1967. Their theory is a simple, elegant bit of reasoning that was a major breakthrough in modern ecological thought. The theory of equi- equilibrium in Iceland biography says the number of kinds of plants and animals on undistributed Iceland that is a natural Iceland unification by man or uh, other calamity in determined by two process, immigration and extinction. In other words, the number of species on an island in the sum of the patients that arrive, bred and live there successfully, minus the number of species that arrive but fail to breed off the eventually become extinct. If a new island starting with zero kinds of birds lands near a mainland that has 100 kinds of birds, then a certain percent of those mainland species are eventually going to find their way to the island. When the first species arrives and establishes itself, the potential number of immigrants decreased by one since there are now only 99 potential immigrant species available from the mainland. At the same time, the potential for extinction increased by one, because with the arrival of the first species, there is now also one species that could become extinct where at first there was none. When the overall bird population finally reaches at mature equilibrium, when the arrival rate of new species balances the extinction rate of only unsuccessful species, the island may host anywhere from only a few to almost all of those 100 mainland species, depending on the island's overall receptivity. Papua New Guinea has a very rich avifauna, almost 800 species of birds, while nearby Bali only has about 300 species. Why? There are several factors that determine this number, and we now need to consider change. The most obvious factor is island size. Papua New Guinea is over 50 times the area of Bali. There are just more space available on a bigger island, so there are more place to hide bigger territories, ter- territories, simply speaking, room for more birds, and the more individuals of a species there are, the bigger the game pool, the greater the breeding opportunities, and the less danger of extinction. But size alone is not the whole story. Just as just as important is the variety of habitats. A longer island is likely to have more different habitats: forests, grasslands, crab lakes, marshes, while a small island may offer only a single habitat of sand and palm trees. Island with multiple habitats, multiple niches can maintain more species. With just one or two habitats available, the species list is going to be very short. This can be seen by comparing islands that are otherwise the same says between polar atolls and volcanic islands, for instance. The Tuamotus Island and the island of Tonga both lie in the middle of the South Pacific, but comprise many small islands with a total land area of about 800 square kilometers, but where the Tuamotus are overall atolls with a maximum altitude of 7 meters. Tonga also include a couple of volcanic islands, one rising to one 133 meters, offering mountain habitat in additional to lowlands. As with expands the bird variety on Tonga, 75 species, somewhat higher than the 57 species on the Tuamotus. Another important factor is the island distance from the mainland or other species source. Its colonies will have to come from whatever lands are nearby and oceanic island. Island further away from their sources will receive fewer species than hardier on one's dense will push coastal islands closer to species course, simply because it's harder, even for a bird to get to a more distant location. This is why the Hawaiian island, then times the area of the Louisiana archipelago as fewer native birds. There are the main determinants of island species capacity size, habitat diversity, and danger of isolation. And it turns out the McArthur and Wilson's theory can be applied to other sorts of islands, to other geographical area. The area isolated in Norway by their surroundings, just as an island is separated from other land by the ocean. Lakes are isolated from other lakes by dry land, so that fish have a great challenge in colonizing lakes are say others do in colonizing island. Mountaintops are islands separated from other mountain tops by ecologically quite different plain and valleys. And national park are islands of original habitats isolation by the human developments around them. Thank you.